Hello there, this is Koerper. I want to do a bonus episode today. This is the Koerper Show. This is episode 73. This is a bonus episode, November 21st, 2018. I get a lot of questions about marathoning. I did qualify eventually. It took me like 10 years. Pretty slow, but I finally qualified for the Boston Marathon, and I ran the Boston Marathon. So I wanted to just briefly do a little podcast about what it takes. So a marathon is 26.2 miles. That's what a marathon is. 26.2 miles, and the oldest annual marathon in the world is the Boston Marathon. So it's epic. I was talking to a friend of mine who's helped me really eventually get the training down for the Boston Marathon. And basically he has run the New York City Marathon, the big marathons, New York City Marathon in the United States, Chicago Marathon, the Marine Corps Marathon in DC, and the LA Marathon. Those are really big marathons, and the Boston Marathon. But he says, and he's run New York and Chicago. He says the Boston Marathon is epic. It's very historic. The whole weekend is really great. It's on Patriots Day. I don't like to run on Sundays because of my faith. I believe Sunday's a day of rest, and I try my best to keep that commandment. And so I usually don't run on Sundays. I haven't in a long time. But the Patriots Day is when the Boston Marathon is, and it's on a Monday. So it's just a great weekend. The whole city of Boston loves the runners. It's just epic. The neat thing about the Boston Marathon is that you have to qualify to go. You have to be invited. Now, I know if you give money to charity, you can run that way. But most of us, when we run the Boston Marathon, we have qualified. So according to your age and gender, there are qualifying times. And you could go to their website, Boston, it's the Boston Athletic Association, but just Google Boston Marathon. And their qualifying times there. They've actually made them 5 minutes shorter. So for someone like me, I'm 55 years old. So for me to go to the Boston Marathon, I need to run a Boston qualifying marathon. And most marathons out there are. If they're really small and rinky-dink, they might not be one, but most marathons are Boston qualifying marathons. So I need to go run a marathon in under 3 hours and 35 minutes. And the lower you can, the quicker you can run the race, the better your chances. Because I have qualified for the Boston Marathon at a time within, a fast enough time, but I didn't get to go because a lot of other people wanted to go, and so I was pushed out. So I had to run faster to be able to qualify. So that is the gist of it. And so then you get invited, then you get an invite to go. So that's why it makes it so exciting. I just wanted the jacket, the Boston Marathon jacket. I thought that was really cool. They're very distinctive. Adidas, I guess, has been their sponsor for a long time. And my uncle ran the Boston Marathon a long time ago. And I remember him telling me about it. And I just always wanted to run the Boston Marathon. That was just a big goal for me. But I never really got there. And the reason why I didn't get there is, and that's what I wanted to present in this little podcast, is that you have to really do a training program. And they're online. Hal Higdon is a popular training program. Any of those training marathons will do, training things will do. The problem is you need to push your body hard enough, but you don't want to injure yourself. And that is the balance that makes it very difficult. But the bottom line is, I really think, essential, and this is no big secret, everyone knows this, is that you have to run the long runs. You need to condition your legs to running very long distances. When you train for a marathon, most people, someone like me, who's not a super professional runner or anything, kind of a novice or intermediate runner, you don't run a marathon before a marathon, because when you run 26 miles, when you run those long distance, you do break down muscles, supposedly. You hurt your legs a little bit. So you try to hurt your legs just a little bit and then let them build and let them get stronger. So you start running further and further on your long runs, and you do a long run. Most people recommend just once a week. And you could do some speed training and other stuff during the week, but it's that long run, and you build up to it. I'm a couple weeks into my program. I'm going to run the Hilton Head Marathon, hopefully on February 9th, unless I get injured next year. And so I'm trying to use that marathon, which is fairly flat, to have a Boston qualifying time. I've run the St. George Marathon, where they bus you up on top of a mountain and you run into St. George, Utah. Okay, you're trying to run that's legal to do that. And I have friends who are going to go down to Mesa and run the Mesa, Arizona marathon soon. And that's mostly downhill. So the downhill marathons can be helpful. But running down off those mountaintops, I mean, I don't know how really helpful that was for me. I got my qualifying time at the Louisville Marathon because it was close to Lexington, Kentucky, close to home. And it's fairly flat race, although you got to run through Iroquois Park, which is kind of up a hill and then down. And so the flatter you can get, is the best. And 50 degrees is pretty much, many people say, is the ideal temperature to run. So down at Hilton Head in South Carolina in February, the temperature should be around 50, 60 degrees, which is ideal. And that's why the Boston Marathon's in April. That's kind of where that temperature will be, although the weather can be really bad, and it was really bad last year. So that is the point that I really want to make, are the long runs. Had a friend who just ran an Ironman, and he blew up with that marathon run. An Ironman is you swim like, I forgot, a mile or so. And then you bike for like 110 miles, and then you run a marathon, 26.2. So that's a full Ironman. That's very challenging. I've never done that, but I've run marathons, and that's hard enough for me as it is. And so you got to get your legs strong. You've got to do the long runs. My friend blew up during his run in the Ironman, and I'm not quite sure what his training program was, but I bet you that he did not do a lot of really long runs, 15-mile runs, 18-mile runs, 20-mile runs before, during that Ironman training program. I really think to be able to run a marathon and get your legs strong enough, you have to really run. People say they hit the wall, and so usually around 16 miles, 17 miles, 18, 19, I hit the wall at the Richmond Marathon at around 18, 19 miles, where my legs just cramped up really bad. It felt like someone poured concrete into them, and then I couldn't run. So that is really, really, I think, the most important thing about preparing to go run a marathon. If you want to go to Boston, it's a huge achievement. I didn't know if I could get my body, this bag of bones, to run a marathon that fast. But with the help of a friend who almost worked as my trainer, using his running program, which was a Hal Higdon modified running program, I was able to do the training and to get my legs strong enough to be able to get used to running such a long distance at a pretty fast pace. So if you're a woman, you get 30-minute head start. At least I think that's what it still is. 30-minute head start. So that is an advantage. And so when I'm training, the old men like me are running with like the 30-year-old women, 25-year-old women, because we both needed we go at the same pace at the same time. So I just wanted to kind of go over that, the excitement of the Boston Marathon and the qualifying for it, and to really train for a marathon. These running programs are all online, and I just want to encourage, there are no shortcuts. There are really no shortcuts. Now, naturally, I could go run a half marathon like right now, Okay, half marathon, yes. 13.1 miles, yes. A full marathon running pretty fast, I know. I need to really get my legs super strong to be able to pull that off. It's much more difficult. That's what makes marathons so much different than a half marathon. That extra distance, that extra 13.1 miles really puts a lot of stress on those legs, and that's what makes it a real challenge. But and then the eating and all these things, I don't want to overemphasize that. The fluids, most people overeat in my observation and overdrink. So it depends on the weather. If you're thirsty, you should drink. Just give electrolytes, a little bit of glucose, but you should. Most people that the nutrition part aspect, I think, gets overemphasized, and the training aspect gets emphasized. So those are a few of the topics I wanted to cover. Leave comments below. If you have any questions for me, you could go to my website, philkoerper.com. It's good to have the running shoes. You could go Runner's World or anything online to get the kind of the proper running shoe. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. It's nice to have a GPS watch so you can see your pace. That's really, I think, important. So you don't go too fast or too slow. People usually go too fast at the beginning of a race. It's nice to have a watch so you can just stay on pace. So you can train and stay on pace. I think that's really, I think that's very helpful. So anyhow, go to philkoerper.com and you can leave comments there if you have any questions. I'd be happy to try to answer them. I'm not an expert on running, but I have done it pretty much most of my life. Really enjoy it, and would love to help you guys any way I can. You guys have a great day. Thank you.